Are we at the end of ASEAN centrality? That's a question that has been raised at a seminar by Professor Amitav Acharya, a renowned expert on Southeast Asian affairs. Professor Acharya explained that one of the problems today is that people only started paying attention to the region since the Obama administration gave prominence to ASEAN, and that perspective and knowledge dates back to only 2009 and not to 1967. So there is a tendency to interpret on every turn of ASEAN from a short-term view, missing out on the long-term picture and have inflated expectations of what ASEAN is and what ASEAN can do. He stated that the commentaries on the mishap of the previous ASEAN ministerial meeting in Phnom Penh missed out on the fact that a lot of the problems had to do with Cambodia. In light of the so-called Cambodian incident in early July, that the first time of its 45 years history failed to issue a joint communique over conflicts of the South China Sea dispute, the 10 member states could not reach a consensus with a single-minded insistence on the part of Cambodia. He points that it is unreasonable for Cambodia to state that ASEAN does not have the norm to discuss a contentious bilateral disputes because of non-interference traditions. He said ASEAN wants to talk multilaterally to China because ASEAN thinks it's a multilateral dispute as much as anything else.
You read the statement of 26 July, Cambodia has said the blame lies with those two countries, Philippines and Vietnam. They blocked the consensus. Now Philippines is criticizing Cambodia. This is going to happen, but my sense is this is not going to derail ASEAN completely because there will be more mature, non-involved parties like Indonesia. The problem of South China Sea is not going to be resolved so soon. The most important thing is for ASEAN to maintain unity. The Chinese are not going to give up a compromise on their claims so easily.
Through the help of the original members, Acharya said countries like Indonesia now have responsibilities in guiding ASEAN through this misery. He spoke positively of Indonesia, where it has already been playing the bigger role in the region.
I think Indonesia is already playing a bigger role. Not just this crisis, this Cambodia setback, but also last year Indonesia was the mediator between Thailand and Cambodia over the Pre-Vihar temple issue. In fact, there were a lot of going back and forth shuttle diplomacy, and that Indonesia now can take some credit for calming the situation. But Indonesia also have been trying to do that for the last 10 years, ever since Indonesia became democratic, and it's a good role. It's not Indonesia dominating the region. It's trying to represent ASEAN. It's very positive.
It is suggested that the Southeast Asian bloc needs to make some serious adjustments to the way it conducts business. First, by improving the analytical capacity of the Secretariat, as it should have allowed the officials to realize a problem was brewing and prepare options or alerted member states. Acharya said ASEAN Secretariat must think like a collective entity, like a community that ASEAN is supposed to become, not like a conglomeration of individual states.
ASEAN Charter gives a specific responsibility to the Secretary General of ASEAN because this position has the so-called unique ASEAN character. Secretary General can represent ASEAN in neutral way, because he or she will speak on behalf of ASEAN. The rest, they work for their country. See, so it is important that the Secretary General has a defined role within the organization. So the leaders must look for a way to strengthen the Secretary General of ASEAN.
ASEAN is a group of relatively small mixed states who, because of collectiveness and willingness to stick together on common principles, had made a much better impact on international relations than it would have otherwise. What is critical is that ASEAN keep in mind that its centrality comes with very serious responsibilities. Centrality is like the center of a heartbeat. Without it, the body would not be able to survive, as there would be no circulation to drive a force. Jeremy Gidesin reports.